Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Studio Live today. In this live stream, we're going to talk about live streaming with a live stream coach, Sara Nguyen. Welcome to the channel. How are you today?
Thanks for having me, Pete. Super excited to be here. I like the inception of we're live streaming and we're talking about live streaming. And so I wonder how many layers of inception we can get into this live
Very
stream.
cool. Hopefully someone will live stream about our live stream and then we'll be
Yes.
and that would be really cool. For those who don't know you and what you get up to here on the worldwide interwebs, give us a little bit of the elevator pitch of the Sara Nguyen experience.
So as you know, thanks for the introduction, Pete. My name is Sara Nguyen. The link is in the description to my channel. And I help coaches, consultants, creatives, small business owners essentially build their business using video and particularly live streaming. So I too live stream about live streaming. And for me, it's all about helping you as a creator leverage live stream and video to get more, build your audience, build your income, and kind of just do what you love. So that's me in a tight little nutshell.
That is good. That is a much better explanation than I give about what I do, because I don't think people still understand what it is I do. I don't know if you're like at a barbecue and people are like, what do you do again? And you have to explain it for the third time. They're like, really? Is that a thing? Like, yes, it's 100% a thing. So we are going to talk about all things live streaming because as folks on this channel know, I attempt to live stream, but I'm very much an audio first, video second guy. So I've been learning this live streaming caper and watching a lot of your videos and videos from other folks to learn how to actually get started. And that's probably a really good place to start is how do you get started? Like I got nothing, like I'm brand new to this. What do I need? How do I actually get cracking and start live streaming? What would you suggest?
Well, let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. So this is a great question. I think that people have the perception that live streaming is really complicated, that there's this, massive setup that you need to have in order to get started. And right now, that's just not true anymore. And I'm of the same camp that you are, Pete, that you really can get started with what you have. And these days, everyone has one of these. Everyone has a phone, a mobile phone, and you can start live streaming with your phone. And there's lots of ways that you can do it. How many ways to skin a cat if you choose to, and you can either start live streaming straight away to YouTube and to Facebook, just using the apps themselves on your mobile device, and that's sufficient. And that's one typical way that people start live streaming. And the second way is that you can actually use your mobile device as a webcam, right? So there's software now that allows you to use your mobile as a webcam, so you don't have to go out and purchase an extra piece of equipment in order to start live streaming. So that's probably the first thing to think about when you're getting started is the camera. The other thing to note is that I find that when people start thinking about live streaming, it's really easy to get stuck in the phase of, I need all the equipment, right? So everyone's like, I need a camera, I need a microphone, I need lights. And I see a lot of people particularly in Facebook groups, sending pictures of their setups. And it's like, why are you spending so much money when you're just getting started? You don't even know if you're going to like this thing, right? So that's why I really recommend get started with what you got. Start live streaming from your mobile device. And that's a great place to start. I find that people progress from using their mobile device, then they'll typically go to a webcam, and then they'll go to like a digital camera. That's the progression of cameras. But the most important thing actually isn't the camera, and it isn't the microphone or the light. It's actually your content that you deliver on the live stream and the delivery of your content. So that's the part that people don't focus on, but that's the part that will get you a bigger audience, that will get you reach, that will get people seeing your stuff and then interacting with you to either buy your services, book you as a musician, or whatever it is. So that's probably like a really sledgehammer nutshell of how to open up, how to get started. Use what you've got. You have a mobile phone. Start using that as a way to start leveraging your live stream muscle, because live streaming is a journey, right? No one out of the gate starts live streaming and is amazing. Like, it's something that you kind of iterate on and you get better with the more that you do. So start with what you've got, and just start enjoying the process and refining it as you go. So I think I've rambled quite a bit there.
That is good. I wanted to let you go because, as folks on this channel know, that could have been a rant by me about music. So I think the reason that Sarah and I get on so well, and we've only known each other a couple of months, but I feel like I've known you for years, is that we both have this same philosophy, which is that, yeah, like I've always said, that you can have $1 million studio and a crappy song, and it's still a crappy song. I think your point here is that you can have thousands of dollars worth of live streaming content and a crappy live stream, or you can use your phone and create some pretty darn engaging live streaming content that people are going to really get a kick out of. So I really like that theory and that concept of, yeah, use what you have to get started and just do it, because practice makes progress, and the more you practice, the better you get. And then, as you say, you can work out if you enjoy it, because you might hate it. You might do it and just go, I actually despise being on live camera. And then, you know what? You don't need $1,000 worth of gear. You don't need anything. So all very, very cool advice. By the way, if any folks who are here on the live chat, we've got a bunch of folks here. Hello to Tom, to Patrick, to Alex, to Healing Heart. We've got Nick here, 1000 Watts, David Pearl, Jade Star, Langston Reese. Anyone watching here on YouTube or Facebook, if you do have questions for Sarah, you want to put her on the spot and throw those curly ones that I won't know, then we can put Sarah to work here today and answer those tough questions like this one. So we touched a little bit on the hardware side, and one thing piqued my interest there, which is that you can use your phone as a webcam. I didn't know that, and this is probably the best camera in my house right now. So I definitely need to hit you up after the show and explore that a little bit more. But what's sort of your recommendations around the hardware side of things? Once you've started using your phone and now you want to start leveling up, where do you go to? What's do you start using?
So I think hardware, definitely phone as a start, some type of microphone source. And last week we did a live stream on my channel. We'll link to that, I assume, where you talked about all the microphones. An easy one to get started with is a lapel microphone or lavalier microphone. And the one that I currently use and recommend is the Daisy V-Lab. Like, they've got cable for days. Like, look how much cable there is on that. And I like this because it's mid-range priced, and the quality of it is beautiful, like beautiful quality that you can use on your mobile device. You can plug it straight into your computer, or you can use it in your digital camera. So it's multi-device, works perfectly, and you don't have to do anything to get good sound, which is, hey, who wants to do anything these days to get anything? So that's probably the first point that I would recommend is some microphone source. Pete always talks about the headset that you get with your mobile device. That's pretty good as well. Like, you don't have to go out and buy an external microphone. If just use the one that comes with your phone to get started, that's fine. But I recommended this one if you do want to go and buy a lavalier microphone or an external microphone. It just works and it's easy. With mobiles, I do recommend getting a tripod. And the reason is, particularly if you're going to start live streaming, you'll find the more that you do it, the longer you start to talk. And just by nature of holding your phone, you're going to shake. No one is not shaky when they hold their phone, whether you think you are or not. So I highly recommend getting a tripod and a tripod mount so that you can attach your phone to the tripod and just have stable footage. So that's probably another cheap little thing that I'd recommend in terms of hardware. This is this, I can't even remember. I got this from one of the tech stores. So this is just a simple selfie stick / tripod. I think it's like the Polar Pro. I can't remember. I'm sure I'll send Pete the link later. But we'll
get Sarah to send the links, and we'll link them later because we don't have them yet. But they will be there on the replay.
And I chose this particular tripod because it gives me length. And the tip that I have with tripods is you want to make sure that you do have a bit of length so that you can get your phone positioned eye level, because I'm telling you now, no one looks good when they're holding their phone from the bottom and shooting up their nostrils. That is not a good look, and I see that all the time. So stop doing that if you're doing that. Get a tripod so you can have your device eye level when you're live streaming. So that's probably a hardware thing to consider: a tripod and a tripod mount so that you can attach your phone and get stable footage for the live stream.
Love it. Yeah, that's such an important one. And even if you don't have a tripod, like, again, you can mount your phone, you can use some books, you can like prop it up, but just get yourself at eye level or above. Yeah, looking below, like, I don't know, all of us at the moment are probably in Zoom meetings and Teams meetings at the moment, and some people, the camera angles leave a lot to be desired. I mean, I'm not one to talk, but again, because especially if you have a face for radio and audio, get your camera up higher, because no one wants to be looking up your nose and checking that out. So Very cool. What about on the camera side? What about the visuals? What sort of recommendation do you have for folks who want to level up their camera hardware?
So if you do want to get a DSLR camera, that understand that DSLRs come with DSLR problems. So it's not just having a DSLR and turning it on. You need like your camera plus a capture card plus an HDMI cable, and that needs to come all together. And typically when you are running a DSLR to live stream with, it's a great option, but it is highly intensive on your computer. So just be aware that if you're just getting started, if you do want to go down the DSLR route, that it will cost you money to make sure that you have everything, souped up so that it works properly. Because when I first started, I got a DSLR, plugged it into my 5-year-old MacBook, and no bueno. Like the camera capture card didn't work, and I was like, oh, this is great. Now I've got a capture card and a camera, and I can't actually live stream with it. So like that was a mistake that I made. I was like, oh, can't I just like go? And it's like, no, you need, like, it's very resource intensive. So that's why I don't recommend, if you're just getting started, to actually use a DSLR. Have it as a progressional thing. That's why I'm like, mobile first, see if you like it, and then progress on to like, the more expensive stuff later.
I like that. And you mentioned before, you kind of do that progression thing of going from phone to webcam and then into something that I'm at webcam level. So I'm still using my Logitech C922 and still love it. And the only reason I can get decent, well, not the only reason, but it does a good job. But yeah, I haven't gone to DSLR yet because I took a tip that someone else gave me, which is to improve your lighting first. And it's a good sort of side note here, because we've had a question from Jade, which is, what's a good cheap lighting setup for a beginner? I mean, you've got some pretty nice looking lighting there. I thankfully have some sort of lighting that I've cobbled together here. What are your tips on getting good lighting in your live streams?
So an amazing source of lighting that is really cheap and it's actually free is the sun. So people underestimate this, and I highly recommend, like, if you can and you don't, before you start investing, see if you can use, particularly because if you're starting with your mobile device, get in front of like a window with light during the day, and that's a beautiful source of light. You look amazing. It's soft light, it's the sun, and it's free. So that's one cheap, it's free source of lighting that I would definitely recommend, just to try out and get started with. Now, people talk about, investing in lots of money on lights. I personally have ring lights. And they're not the cheapest. They've come down in price now, but I liked them because they were a compact solution, whereas softbox lights, they're not too expensive, but they take up a lot of room. You don't have to actually invest in high-end lights. You can just use lamps that you have lying around the house. Like, they work perfectly fine as well. The whole point of lighting is to light you. So if you are using your IKEA lights, place it in front of you. Once again, not from the bottom. I don't know why people do that. I see it all the time. I was like, why don't put your lights, don't put your cameras, shooting up at your face and up at your nose. No one looks good like that. So it's about having it in front of you, and bouncing the light so that you can remove all the shadows off your face. So use the lights that you have in your house. Lamps are okay. The sun is okay. And if you really do want to invest in lights, I do like a ring light, because once again, it's a one light solution. I don't have to do much but turn it on, as a way to get started with lighting for live streaming.
Nice. Yeah, and that's probably what I need to next invest in, because I do have 2 giant soft boxes in the corners of my room that I'm looking at here right now, and they look fine when I'm looking this way. But as folks who have seen my studio know, they do take up a lot of real estate, and I could put like at least 3 guitars in the floor space that I could have these in. So as we know, more guitars is better. So awesome. That's some really good hardware advice. We better move on, or we're going to be here nerding out on hardware all day. What about on the software side? So you mentioned at the start that you can use the native Facebook app and the native YouTube app on your phone, or I'm assuming on your desktop, and then there's some other options. Why don't you talk us through what your recommendations are, or what you can use to live stream?
So I'll talk. There are so many different options. So I'm going to talk to the options that I use. We are currently live streaming using StreamYard, and they've come a long way. So I use them as well as Pete, and they're a great option because they're easy to use. I think they're reasonably priced for the features that you get. They're still improving. They've still got stuff to add, but I like that, you don't need to have a souped up computer to run them. They're browser based. So I would definitely consider StreamYard as a way to get started. both for mobile live streaming. You can use them on your mobile device and on desktop. So 100% would shout out to StreamYard as a way to get started with live streaming as a software option. And why use them? Because you can do the fancy things that you see here. So you can add the text that you see here. You can add images, you can add videos, you can add guests easily, and that you take for granted until you actually have to do it. So there's other software out there where having guests on your live stream is not a easy process, and it's not a flawless process where you have your guests come in and then no one can hear anyone. So I think StreamYard at the moment, in my experience, they've nailed that part of live streaming. So definitely recommend StreamYard. The second option is software-based, and I use Ecamm Live. I'm on a Mac. The equivalent, I guess, is OBS. I'm not a fan of OBS, to be honest, because I find them not easy to use. I find their interface hideous, but Ecamm Live I find is a really good option. But I think that's the next step. Like, they're fiddly. There's lots of features, probably too many features, but they're a good option if you do want to add lots of stuff and have lots of flexibility on your live streams.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, I've been using StreamYard for a while. I do use OBS for some of my music streams. And the one thing about StreamYard is that their audio is good and improving. As you said, they're getting better and better, but it's still not the high def sort of stereo audio that you'd want if you're doing, say, a live concert, or if you've got live stereo audio where you do. So if I'm doing mixing or if I'm doing mastering and doing other sort of live streams, I'll have to struggle and grapple with OBS. So, if it's something like this, especially with guests, and especially if you want a simple approach, StreamYard's good. And StreamYard actually has a free option too. So when you start out, you can stream for something like 20 hours. It's pretty generous, about 20 hours a month that you can stream for live with the free version. And the only difference is you'll get the duck in the corner up there. So you get the Powered by StreamYard little logo there when you're streaming, when you're on the free plan. And there's links to everything we talk about. I'll make sure it's linked down below. But there is a link to StreamYard if you want to check it on out, because I've been using it for years, and it does do a really good job. Rightio, we've got some questions coming in, which we'll get to in a moment, and some of them might be answered by this. So I'll throw this one up here first, and then we'll mop up with any other questions. How do I make my streams engaging, Sarah? I've got all the gear, I've got my phone, I'm ready to go. I hit record. What do I say? What do I do? How do I engage?
This is a very good question, Pete. People think that with live streaming, everything just magically happens. But what people don't see is behind the scenes. In order to create a video or a live stream video and make it successful, for the most part, there's planning that goes into it. So I think to make a live stream engaging, you and I didn't wake up this morning and say, oh, let's get on a live stream. What are we going to talk about? No, we planned this. We talked about what content are we going to deliver that will best help our users and that will, they'll be interested in. So it's about doing the research and finding content and then working on your delivery of that content. So I think that I'm a content person. I'm a content nerd. I write, I produce. So I'm always, content is not just king and queen. Content is everything. Everything is the universe of content. Everything else revolves around it. So focus on your content and focus on your delivery of your content is probably the first and foremost. The other things to make your live streams engaging, and this is a nice to have, is to add visuals. So you see this overlay that Pete's got at the bottom here. Just these nice little touches where you can add some text and you can add some visual cues. They're a nice way for people to see something a bit different and to enhance the live stream, but they're not a must have. You shouldn't be saying, I can't do an overlay, therefore I can't live stream. Like, that's not what we want people to be thinking. It's all in the content. You don't have to have overlays, but overlays are a way to, if you're going to use StreamYard, they've got this function there for you to use. Focus on the content, consider adding visuals, but the biggest thing is focus on what you're going to talk about so that it adds value and your delivery of it. I see a lot of people who get started with live streaming I can tell that they've just gotten started because they take forever to get to the point, right? So it's like, come on, I can't scrub because I'm watching you live. Just tell me what I came here to tell you. So work on your craft, work on your delivery, and make sure that your content's on point. So that's what I recommend people do when they're like, I'm not getting much engagement. It's like, well, you talked for about half an hour before you actually got to the point. So that's probably why people were zoning out.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I mean, I stole this method of having these sort of dot points to have prompting questions from you, because last week I was on your channel and you had the exact same things for me, and I think it keeps you really on track. I mean, I've always used notes and I've always tried to keep on track, but it is a pet peeve of mine. And my wife always says it. She's like, I hate watching a video where they're like, in this video we're going to tell you how to do this, and once you know how to do this, you're going to be very happy. And before we start telling you how to do this, I just need to tell you. It's like, just tell me the thing, just get to the point. So yeah, I think that's a very key thing, and start small would probably be my advice there. There's nothing wrong with a 5-minute live stream for your first one. In fact, it'll help keep you on point if you start small. Right to go. Sorry. Yeah, I had another point then, and then I forgot it. Engaging points, yes. Keep on point, and yeah, I like the tips there around having a plan, because yeah, you do want to know what you're talking about. Otherwise, you'll get on there and not know what to say. Let's jump in and grab some questions from folks who are here live, shall we? We've got a question here from Healing Heart. Says, any tips for being camera shy? I'm so uncomfortable in front of a camera that I'm not sure I'll ever be able to achieve live streaming or any kind of video content where I have to be seen. How do we get over or manage, because you're not going to get over it, the camera shyness and not wanting to be in front of camera, Sarah?
Healing Heart, I hear you. People argue with me when I tell them this, but I am actually, I'm introvert. I identify as introvert. And I actually have always been a shy and inward person, right? So for me to be on camera actually took a lot of work, but I knew it was something that I wanted to do, but it was never something I was comfortable with. Being on camera and live streaming is really a muscle. So I would say, Healing Heart, when you're getting started, as Pete said, maybe don't aim to do a 5-hour live stream. Aim to go for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, plan out what you're going to say, go live, and give that a go. And as you do that more, then you can build that muscle, and you'll find, okay, I've done 5 minutes. I think I can talk for 10 minutes, and then you can just work that muscle, and you'll get more comfortable on camera, and then you start to enjoy it, and then you'll start loving the content creation process. And that's how I wouldn't say overcome it. It's just something that you'll always have, but you learn to have a better relationship with being on camera, your shyness. Like, I was on a live stream yesterday or the day before, and before I turned on the camera, well, before I hit live, I go through the same motions that lots of people do. It's like I start coughing, I get really nervous, I start sweating, and people don't see that, but it's something that we go through, and we I think it's like part of the art and part of the process of, even with musicians, like, do all musicians rock out confidently and not feel any fear? I don't think they do. Like, I think a lot of them feel fear, but they kind of just work at it in small doses, and then that's how they kind of learn to live with it and get better at it. So live streaming isn't an end result. It's a journey where you keep getting better at it. And I promise you that for the most part, I find with creatives, they're really afraid of it. And then once they do it, they're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And once that people start to see their content, they're like, and engaging with it, it's like, this is actually pretty good. So give yourself a chance to be on camera. Don't put so much pressure on yourself to have to go for ages. 5 minutes, maybe once a week, twice a week, and start to build that muscle. So that's what I'd recommend. And I think the other advice that I, always say is that if you want to be on camera and you want to put your message out there, there's someone else who needs to hear it. There's someone else who needs to hear whatever you have to put out, whatever you have to say. Mm-hmm. So you're doing a disservice to yourself and the universe by not, putting it out there, because that person needs to hear it. So bit of a go do it.
Yeah, exactly. Get out there and do it. Yeah, and it's very similar to music because I get this exact same question from folks who are shy about sharing their music. They're like, Pete, I'm a card-carrying introvert. I don't want other people to judge me, to think that I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm feeling nervous about this. And yeah, it's about starting small and starting with. And again, with live streaming, you can live stream to yourself. Like, don't hit live and go live to public. All these platforms have the ability to live stream privately.
Yes.
So practice to yourself or do it in a group, like in a Facebook group. You can stream to a group. There's ways to do it without going out publicly to everyone so that your mum, your dad, your auntie, and your nana are all going to see you. You could do it privately, get your skills honed, and then move on from there. So yeah, we hear you loud and clear, and yeah, it's definitely something that I think all creative folks, musicians, video creators, anyone, artists, we all have the same challenges that we work through. What about this one, Sarah? Do you make a script to follow? Is any of your content scripted? How do you pull your content together?
So I used to script, being very shy, nervous, and a hot mess. I used to script everything and then just read it. And I found that when I was doing that, I felt robotic. So I was like, so at the moment, what I do is 100% I plan, but I write, you can't see them, but I write bullet points and I talk to them. So I practice my content, I write down what I'm going to say, so I know that they're there, but I don't script anymore, but I used to. So I, use it as a tool. There's no guide to say you have to script or, you don't have to script. See what works for you. If scripting works for you, use that. For me personally, I was really robotic sounding, and I was like, I want to sound a bit more natural. So I worked on, not scripting.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers that.
Yeah. It comes down to personal preference, I think, and it may help you when you first start out, like you say, but then eventually I think people want almost that flow of consciousness, and they want more of a natural, generally speaking. There's some very technical things that you might be live streaming about where you do want it to be super scripted because you're giving some pretty technical information. But yeah, horses for courses, I think, for that one. We've got some more questions here. Sorry, you're very popular here, Sarah. Everyone wants to ask you a lot of questions. Patrick Moonbird here, who is a musician. Shout out to you, Patrick. Makes very good music. Now, Patrick was asking before, and I think we've answered some of his questions about, how to get the quality and what do you do if you're camera shy. Live stream short or long? I think we have touched on this, but what's your opinions on the optimal length for a live stream?
I think that it should be as long as it needs to be to get your point across, and no longer. So I know with musicians, as long as it is to get your, the vibe or the feel, the music that you want across, and no longer. If you feel like you're dragging, the audience feels like you're dragging. So I think that should be kind of the rule. And it's one that it really depends. So for the most part, my live streams vary between 15 minutes to 20 minutes to half an hour. So it really just depends on what you're delivering, but as long as it takes to get the point across concisely, like don't drag on.
And in that vein, we'll move on to the next question because we have a couple more topics to go. This was going to be about 30 minutes. Sorry, we're going to go into overtime here, Sarah.
Okay,
too many people want too much of your knowledge, so we just have to go an extra 5 here, I think. Happy Ron, also another musician, says that how do you get more people? Here's the $1 million question. More people to come and watch your live streams.
So this is an interesting one, right? So I find with live streaming on YouTube, it's different to live streaming on Facebook. On YouTube, I find that most of my views come after the live stream, right? So I live stream, I deliver my content, I optimize the video, and the views come afterwards. On a live stream, it will vary with the number of people that I have, but the views happen after. To get people on the actual live streams is about promoting it and also accepting the fact that, when you're just starting out and your channel's small, there's not going to be lots of people on the live stream. But I've also noticed, I was watching a couple of big YouTubers on their live streams, people who have 100,000, people who have like 600,000. The number of people actually on the live stream at that time for the size of their channel wasn't high either. So, just keep in mind that when you're live streaming, in order to get a lot of people on, like, look at all the time zones you're dealing with. Like, people have to be available at that exact point in time. So I think, just understand that when you're just starting out and you're smaller, there's probably not going to be a lot of people on it, and that's okay. As you continue to do more and as you continue to grow, you'll have more people, but a lot of the views will happen after the live stream. That's on YouTube. For Facebook, That's another interesting one. I find
Mm.
with Facebook, the number of people live is pretty low in general, regardless of the size, because most of the views will happen after the broadcast if you advertise. That's Facebook's big thing. They want you to advertise to, promote your content. So it's one of those, but it's kind of how the game is kind of played, so that's kind of the live stream game of getting people on.
That's good advice, and I think what I take from that as well, and something I've learned over time, is make sure that the replayability factor is incorporated into your live stream, because and you've already covered this by the length of it and sticking to the point, but don't just consider the people that are here live. So you might have noticed that when I'm throwing questions here, I'm reading out the question, we're talking about it. I see a lot of live streams from people starting out where they'll just be reading the chat and the comments, but they'll be reacting to it without telling people what it is. And if you're not there live, you have no idea what the question was that was asked or the comment that was made. So if you're reacting to a comment, if you're engaging with people live, that's totally cool. But I would suggest making sure that you make that so that anyone watching it in a week, a month, or a year's time can actually know what you were talking about. So
just keep it, and just to add to that, like, keep in mind, like, I open my live streams with, welcoming everyone, and I acknowledge, like, whether you're live with me now or you're watching the replay, and that will keep in the back of your mind that, okay, it's not just people here, it's people who will watch it later as well.
Shout out to our friends watching it later, as well as the live, like Happy Ron, who says, shyness, if you get through your first live stream without throwing up on camera, you've done great. I think that's a very good point there, Ron. Let's come back here, because we've got a couple more things to get through, and then we are going to have to finish up, because we'll let Sarah get back to her own live streaming. Now, we got a lot of musicians here. You've heard from a few of them here on the live show already. And we want the $1 million question here is, what can we as music creators, producers, and musicians do when it comes to live streaming?
This was a very interesting question that we talked about because obviously a lot of your audience are musicians. Now, this is also a little bit controversial. So I was like, ooh, controversy. I think for musicians, in terms of live streaming and creating content on YouTube or Facebook, there's a couple of ways that you can approach it. I'm going to tell a story. There was a musician that I saw in Sydney in Pitt Street Mall, which is a very busy, shopping area, and he was busking at that time, and he had his Instagram there, so that's how I connected with him to see who he was. He was playing one of Justin Bieber's songs, or whoever sings Despacito, I think. Anyway, he was playing Despacito, very popular song that everyone knew. And I remember following him later on Instagram, and he was on an Instagram live, and he was asking for song requests, and someone said Despacito. And he was like, please don't make me play that song anymore. I'm so sick of that song. I only played that song to bring in the crowds, but now I want to play my own music, right? So the point I'm getting to is, I think with musicians, there's one part where you can play other people's songs and do covers of other people's songs on a live stream or as recorded music to get people in and to be found, right? And that's one way of doing it, but understand that you won't be able to monetize much of that, or if any of that, but that's one way of being found. So that's one part. And then the other part, I think, is playing your own music, which is what you all want to do. Because, well, most people want to do. Most musicians, I assume, want to play their own music, and in addition to other people's stuff as well. So I think it's finding that balance between music that gets you found, which is cover versions of songs, or playing other people's songs, and then your own music. And then those are the two main ones that I would recommend for musicians to start live streaming with. And then the third category is possibly like just, allowing people to see a little bit behind the scenes of your life as well. So I think with live streaming content for musicians, it either needs to be incredibly entertaining, so whether that's your own music, other people's music, or it needs to be educational. So that's with all YouTube or videos in general. They need to slot into one of those ones, either be educational, which is what a lot of stuff that I do, and Pete does that as well as being entertaining, which Pete does everything.
It's a tough one, because it's hard to find that balance. And it's interesting you mentioned that story, because some of the band, like you wouldn't know it, but a lot of the artists and a lot of the bands and a lot of the people that you probably like and respect spend a lot of time busking and playing cover songs, or playing in wedding bands or party bands, playing, don't blame it on the sunshine and blame it on the moonlight time and time again until they honed their chops and people followed them, and then they can start moving over to that. So I think that's a really good advice, is that, it's not about you don't have to just go out there and sell your soul and just play cover songs for the rest of your life if you want to produce music. But at the same time, you got to think about the audience. And I think the key of both of those is thinking about the end viewer, think about the consumer, the audience, the follower, whatever you want to call them. But what do you as a viewer want to watch? And then what would they actually want to see? Like, what do you want to know about the artist that you like? You might want to see them play a cover song that you're familiar with. You might want to see behind the scenes of their rehearsal, or how they record their songs, or the gear that they use. So there's a heap of different options that you have there. And thank you for sharing that, because I think you've nailed it there. Hopefully musicians now are racing out there to hone their disposition now. Right, we are going to have to round it out here. We have one question that came in, and I think we've covered this a little bit. In fact, we've covered it completely. What microphone do you recommend for good audio for streaming? And that was from Valentina. So you've mentioned a lavalier mic. You've mentioned a couple of other options. Anything else that you wanted to mention for this one?
So if you are using your phone, one of the ones that I've been using for a little while, because it plugs directly into the phone via that. If you can see that, it's a bit blurry, sorry, is the Rode Video Mic Me L. And it's not going to be like your shotgun microphone or your high-end studio microphone, but for live streaming, it's, no cords, it's just tidy, you plug it in, it works. So this is another quick and easy one to use. So that's definitely one that I recommend. We definitely need to link to our live stream from last week, because Pete went through all the mics. But we talked about lav mic and this mini shotgun mic. So there's lots of options, but those are two that we can recommend.
Excellent. Now, we've probably already covered a lot of these, and we've delved into all of your best things. But are there any left in there, Sarah? Is there any that you've got there? Any great tips for great live streams that we haven't covered that you wanted to finish off with here today?
I think the biggest tip is to the one that people disregard the most, and that really is to let your content sing for itself. Sing for itself, speak for itself, sing for itself as well. Why not? Why can't your content sing? Like, we're on musicians, let your content sing. And focus on your content, which is your art musicians. Or if you are not a musician and you want to do tutorials and training, focus on what you're delivering. Make sure it is world class. That's the aim that I get. Like, I try to strive for, and I don't always get there, but the aim is, what is the best content that I can put out there for the video that I'm doing. And then focus on your delivery. Those are the two things that people don't get to, because they're so obsessed about the camera and the lighting and, having a stream deck and having a mixer. And I'm like, why are you even spending all this money when all the time needs to go into your delivery of the content? That's where your time is best spent, so that when you're live, it comes out perfectly, or, it comes out fantastically. So that's my biggest tip that people don't get to, is to focus on your content and focus on your delivery of the content. And if you focus on that, the rest of it doesn't matter. The lights, the cameras, the whatever, that really doesn't matter. And that's the journey that, I think people need to realize with live streaming, that it's all about the content at the end of the day. Like, the lights, the cameras, they're really like 5%, if best, of the actual effort. It's all in the content.
I couldn't think of a better way to go out on than that, because it's so much about the content and what you're actually delivering, as opposed to how you do it. And if you can find a way to deliver your message, I think you said it really well before, which is that there is someone out there that needs what you are putting out there in the world, and don't underestimate how valuable and how useful, and it might just make someone's day, make them smile or laugh or learn something new. It is a great way to engage with people. So thank you for engaging with the studio live today, community here today, Sarah. Before we finish up, where can folks go to check out what you're doing online and what you got going on at the moment?
Yep. So links in the description to my channel. I'm Sara Nguyen, and my channel's name is Sara Nguyen, named it after myself. And my website is Sara Nguyen Online. So that's where you can find more content on me. So that's where they can find me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure many of the community here have learned as well. Check out the links below, and do check out Sarah's channel. She does live streaming almost every day. She's helped me in terms of getting lots of videos out there. So yeah, there's always some new content and something new to explore over on Sarah's channel. So thank you again, Sarah, for being here today. Thank you, folks, for being here and watching live or on the replay. If you've got questions we didn't get to, please drop them down in the comments. I'm sure Sarah and myself will be down there checking out any questions that you have about live streaming. Until next time, folks, we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.